Hi, welcome back to Jason's Pizza Lab. This evening I'm going to be making a Poolish pre-ferment, which is part of a 1.65 kilo batch of dough I'll be making tomorrow evening, approximately 16 hours from now. If you look at my kitchen window, you can see it's pitch dark because I'm actually recording this close to midnight, as I tend to do these days. So in front of me, I have all the bits I need to make this room temperature Poolish. I'm going to be making 780 grams, which will be part of a 40% contribution to a 66% hydration batch of dough I'll be making tomorrow evening, as I said, which is 1.65 kilos, or it'll be roughly 6 balls worth of 275 grams, which make 12-inch pizzas. So I have in the tub Caputo Sacro Rosso high protein flour, which is typically the flour that I use these days. Using a high protein flour allows me to basically, when I've produced my batch of dough, it goes straight into my proving box for 72 hours at 4 degrees or possibly 3 degrees Celsius. And that cold temperature with high protein and that hydration gives the dough that time to ferment and develop the flavors, which are just incredible for these pizzas. So that's the flour. Just got regular tap water, nothing special about that. I'm using Allison's Easy Bake yeast or instant yeast, as it is. Using a very small amount of honey, and I've got two sets of scales, as I've shown previously in my previous videos. I use a small set of scales for the yeast because you need the resolution, and we'll be using the larger scales to weigh out the water and the flour. So let's kick things off very quickly. The amount of yeast that I'm going to be using is a very small amount. It's 0.03 of a gram, which might not look very much, and in fact it isn't. These scales typically don't weigh. There's 0.07. You can see the amount of yeast that I've used. It's practically nothing. Some people use a pinch of yeast. So there's my pinch. I'm gonna pop that straight into my mixing bowl. I'm done with the small scales, so I'll pop them to one side. Put my mixing bowl on the large scales, and I'll position that so you can see the readout. Tear that off back to zero, and I shall simply pop in 390 grams of flour. So 190. Let's get straight in 280. Where are we at? 370. Need just a tiny bit more. 390 grams. That's pretty close. Okay, so that's the flour, which I shall move out of shot. Okay, so at this point, I would simply all we're doing is adding 390 grams of water, which is 390 milliliters, 1 milliliter, 1 gram. Super easy to work out those numbers. I never ever recommend you use cups, spoons, teaspoons, tablespoons, pinches. Forget it. Just measure everything in grams. You won't go wrong. It's nearly impossible to get the ratios wrong if you're measuring stuff in grams with a weighing scale. So back to the scales. We've got 380 grams of the flour. I'm going to tear that off again and simply put in 380 grams of water. Okay, which is the bulk of this jug as it happens, because I put roughly 400 in just to get us to where we need to be. So we're 380, 386, 389.2. Okay, a bit more. 390 and a half. That is pretty close. And of this, I'm going to add literally a tiny drizzle of honey just to kick off the yeast. So now we're at the situation where we've got the flour, the yeast, the water all mixed, and all we need to do on this now is simply give it a good old stir. So all we're doing here is stirring the flour and the water. You'll end up with a very runny consistency, very sort of paste looking. So as I'm sort of giving this a spoon, I use the back of the spoon against the bowl just to break down any clumps of flour that may remain in the bottom of the bowl. And so there we go. That is, where's my little spoon? That is my Poolish. And because I've used a small amount of yeast, and I'm going to be doing this at room temperature, my kitchen at the moment is showing very roughly 20.5 degrees Celsius. It is midnight, so I'm expecting that temperature to drop down overnight. I usually monitor the temperature everywhere that I produce all these recipes. Temperature plays a critical part in the process of producing dough, as does the hydration. Sorry, the humidity. These little monitors I have practically everywhere throughout the house tell me what the temperatures, also tell me the humidity. So from knowing the temperature, I can calculate quite easily how long I need my dough to remain at that temperature for a given time, for a given result. What I see loads and loads of times in posts on Facebook and questions or comments on TikTok videos is room temperature. Everyone's room temperature across the planet is completely different. I'm in the UK. It's February. In our winter season at the moment, so room temperatures will typically be lower unless the heating is on. If I was in South Africa, I would have different temperatures. If I was Australia, I'd have much higher temperatures. Your room temperatures will vary. Knowing what the temperature is critical to knowing what your dough is going to be doing. To combat all these different temperature variations, I've made myself a proving box, which is basically a modified under-counter fridge, where I've taken out all the mechanical thermostat sort of controls. I've added an electronic control, and I've added a fan heater within the fridge itself. So I've got the fridge part to cool it down, I've got the fan part to raise up the temperature, so I can set whichever temperature I need. So as it happens, this particular batch of Poolish, as you can see in the bowl, I'm going to cover this with cling film. I know my room temperature isn't going to vary much overnight. By the morning, I'll probably see that temperature come down to maybe 17 degrees. And this Poolish will be ready by about 4 p.m. tomorrow evening. It is that simple. Okay, cheers guys. Thanks for watching the video. If you want to like and subscribe, feel free. Any support you provide is greatly received. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. See you next time.